welcome back to the Hope Thing, a Native American podcast where we discuss focused topics within tribal housing and self-determination. I'm Melissa Atkins, the Training and Development Coordinator, and with me is Brooke Warrington, the Training and Development Specialist. And today we are very happy to welcome back Courtney Osceola. We're just going to go ahead and dive right in. Courtney, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself for those who are not familiar with your voice?
In Watchet, Virginia Osceola, and Tate Jordan Osceola. Hello, everybody. My name is Courtney Osceola. I'm a member of the Bird Clan, and my mother is Virginia Osceola, and my father is Jordan Osceola. I live and I work on the Hollywood Reservation. This one's pertaining to fitness, so I'm a fitness specialist, which it really grants me opportunities to really do anything under the fitness branch, which is what I really enjoy doing. I'm not tied to I'm only a personal trainer. So I get to do weight room. I get to do I enjoy doing field workouts because I love being outside, pool workouts, and basketball training is what I kind of mostly specialize in.
So if you specialize in basketball training, does that mean we have had a perhaps history of being a basketball player?
Yes, ma'am. So when I was younger, I said this on the last podcast, but when I was younger, my family and I, only my father was enrolled in the Seminole tribe. My mother and they're all five of us siblings. We were considered independent. That's what it is when you're not enrolled in a tribe. So we weren't allowed to use the facilities for a little while because we weren't Seminole tribal members, but that I was maybe around 5. Yeah, probably around 5, if not a year or two younger. But we finally enrolled, and then we were allowed to use the gymnasium. And I'm not sure if you're aware of how the Hollywood Reservation is set up, but at the time, we didn't have a lot of money, resources, and so if you see it, it's kind of looks like a tin building, and that's how a lot of tribes are. They're kind of sometimes they're prefab and things like that, pre-made, and but so it was small at the time, but we just had a bunch of Rez Kids in there don't know what we're doing. It's just here's a ball. But as I got a little bit older, I was lucky enough where recreation created a team. There were enough children, so we had. At the time, we started off as only a boys team. There wasn't enough interest in girls, so the girls had to play with the boys. And I'm the youngest of 5, but I have 3 older sisters and an older brother. And in age, I'm closest with my brother, so I was always just following him around anyway, doing whatever he did. So I was kind of used to being there, being around, boys, and having oh, you got to, toughen up. That wasn't a foul. You got to keep going. So I was kind of already used to that at that point, but gradually, and tournaments we would play with in the boys division, and then finally we got enough girls to create a girls team, and that's where Crystal, she was on the older end of the age. So we started off with a 14 and under. She was probably around 13, 14. But I was about 11. So I've always been on the younger side of it as well. So I always had to play up. 11-year-olds, I was a late bloomer too. So I tried out there, did my best. And then, we got to go more. We got to go more places. We got to visit new gyms, what other places were like. And this wasn't strictly other tribes either. It was around Florida. So that's where I have a deep appreciation for recreation, because it showed us a different side to not just your home state, but the world. Because finally, gradually, I was probably about 13 at this point. We got enough teams we got enough players for a boys team and 2 girls team. It was I believe they were a 16 and under, and then or about 18 and under, and then we were the 14 and under, and we got to go to Hawaii. And so that was the most amazing trip of my life. I'm a little kid. You never envision you're gonna go, basketball can take you that far. That was a huge eye-opener. We would go to nationals, AAU nationals, sometimes around Florida. It was usually held in Florida, and you had people from like all over the country that were coming. And then, but going across the country from Florida to Hawaii, and I'm 13 years old, it's like my mind's blown. And you have people from like Australia that came, and different from like New York and things like that. So it was just a crazy experience at such a young age, and I'm forever grateful for them, because, and my parents say it all the time, like, we didn't have a lot of money back then, and without recreation's help and the tribe's help, we wouldn't have made it over there. And seeing the world and experiencing new things, like, that helps you grow and learn different aspects. And it also, I believe, helps you it teaches you how to deal with obviously different types of people, because on the reservation, now we're a little bit more, you have people who are dating other nationalities and things like that. But when I was younger, it was really only Seminoles that were on the reservation. But now it's getting a little bit more open, but at the time it wasn't. So we weren't really around a lot of people, a lot of different types of people. So it was really eye-opening. And the more that you see the world and you learn about different people, you can handle situations a lot better than you would if you just are to stay in a box. And there's nothing wrong. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I live on the reservation. I've lived in Kentucky when I went to school, and I've lived in Miccosukee, and I've lived in Davie for a time. So it's like, I haven't always stayed on the reservation, but there's nothing ever wrong with staying on the reservation either, because this is where your people are. How could it be bad? But it's also like, my father was a traveler. He was an entrepreneur, he was a businessman, and he was a diplomat. So it was like, that's where I learned to kind of broaden my mind and broaden my horizons, but also never downing people who don't have that need, because sometimes that's okay too. If you're not going to interact with a lot of people, like, okay. So that's my history with basketball. I ended up playing all through high school. I was varsity back in 8th grade, starting in 8th grade. And I had quite a few college scholarships, but there was a lot of things going on in my personal life where I decided not to take those opportunities. And that's something that, I tell my nieces and nephews. I'm like, I don't regret anything in life. Everything happens for a reason. You'll learn why things happen and why things didn't happen. So it doesn't do well to dwell on the past of like, oh, I should have did this, I should have did that. Okay, what are you going to do from here on out, though? That happened. You can't go back in time. So I'm very, not grateful, because obviously it would have been a great experience, but it's just, it would have tied me down to, being committed to that college team. And I wouldn't have been able to do the things and be present for my family in the way that I was and currently am. So, and now I get to work with even just directly my family's next generation, like my oldest nephew, who I taught him how to play basketball, was he's receiving scholarships already, JUCOs, and he's looking, D3s are looking at him, and he had to reclass because he got into a really bad car accident. But now we're looking to broaden, those offers as well. So he gets to have a senior year and all that, and we're going full throttle. So it's like, what? And if I feel like if I stewed in, oh, I didn't do that, I didn't play college, I regret not doing that, my mind would have been there instead of where I am here. And I'm very, grateful for where I am. So it helps shape like who I am, and teaching them, like weighing the pros and cons of what you do, your actions, essentially, the pros and cons of everything, because everything has pros and cons. So I learned a lot and I'm still learning, and I'm grateful for every day that I get to learn.
Oh, well, it sounds like your love started at a very, very young age. Your love for fitness.
I really love fitness. I love, sports, not just basketball. I love athletics. It's so good, not obviously for your body, but it's good for your mental well-being. It's good for your emotional. It helps regulate, I feel, because that's what I tell my team. It's like, okay, I can't curse. When life gets hard, when things get hard, when things are tough, that shows your character, right? But it shows your morals, it shows your values, how you handle those situations. Life is not always fair, life is not always easy. And that's what happens, for example, like on the basketball court. You know, there's a player that's playing dirty. You know, they're grabbing you, they're fouling you, and the refs are turning a blind eye. And it's so blatantly unfair, right? But that's what happens in life too. When you're when you're in a workplace, and someone who's lacking, or you know that they're cheating or something, and they still get a promotion over you. That's not fair. It isn't. But what are you going to do about that? Are you going to go and cry around about it? Or are you going to keep working hard, because the truth always comes out? You know what I mean? Like you don't get out of this world on a clean slate. You don't. So that's why I feel like it's so important for the youth to play sports and learn that mental toughness from an early age, and how to regulate your emotions, because all of that is angering. It's super infuriating. So it's like, okay, someone just fouled you hard. You didn't get the call. Are you going to get up, pick yourself up, and keep playing and finish the game? Or are you going to sit there and cry around about it and mope around on the bench? Take yourself out of the game. So it's like, even that at such a young age, and then you grow, and it's like you can see a difference in people. So that, and like with sports, but the fitness aspect of it is I've worked with I work with a lot of, you know, ages, from like a youth. Like the youngest I work with, he's about 11, and the oldest sometimes I'll work with is in like their 60s, right? And all in between, all the ranges. I work with teenagers that are still playing sports. I work with in their 20s. I work with in their 30s. Some still playing athletics, some not. But I work with men and I work with women as well. And on the women aspect, I've worked with a lot of like sexual assault survivors. I've worked with a lot of people who have survived through, you know, abuse. So you can see them, you know, when they first come in, they just kind of are down on themselves. They don't have that confidence. You can see it. And I'm sure, you know, you never met me personally, but I'm always like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" You know, like I walk in, and I don't want to say I don't have any fear, but at the same time, I don't really have any fear. So, and that comes from a lot of support from the men and women in my life. Like my father, he was my number one supporter. My uncles, you know, my aunts, my mom. Sorry, I'm getting like emotional because like Father's Day is coming up, and my father passed away on the 9th of June. So like it's like I get to be who I am because of them. They made me who I am. And that's why I don't believe in self-made people. You will never hear me say I'm self-made. Like, no, my ancestors made me, my family made me, my community made me. And I'm so grateful. Like, that's why you'll hear me constantly say, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful. Sure, I'll cry around a little bit from time to time, but it's never like she's so spoiled because like she doesn't know what she has. Like, no, I know what I have, and I wake up, you know, happy because I got to wake up. And so when I see, and a lot of times I don't even know that they're, you know, survivors. So it's just like as they open up to me more, it comes out. They tell me, and I was like, you know, this life is hard. Like I said, the world is tough. It's a tough place to be in, especially to be as a woman. But I'm like, you know, I don't know people's story. I don't try to, you know, like, oh, tell me what happened today, blah, blah, blah. I always let people approach me when they're ready. And so they would tell me like, yeah, like this happened when I was a kid, or my partner did that, my ex-partner did this to me. And I'm like, this, like I'm sorry that that happened to you. And then she's there, well, like, you know, thank you for being here for me. And I'm like, I'll always be here, you know, even if I'm not physically here for you, you know, you have, you know, someone in your corner rooting for you. And so as they, you know, they continue to come and work out, you can see the confidence in themselves, because it boosts, because I feel like, you know, they've, in some aspect of your life, you're taking control of your own narrative. You're taking control of your body. You're taking control of your actions. So I think that's something very empowering to some people. And when you can see that switch, it's like, oh, okay, we're here now. It's a brand new you. Like I'm happy for you. You close that chapter and you're able to start a new one. So it's crazy to see how something as some view as like, oh, they're just working out, they're just lifting some weights, and it's like yeah, but something that small can help people. So there are times when I feel like, oh, like I got to do another training again today. I did that yesterday and I did that the day before. And it's like, "Ugh, do I really want to do this again?" And then usually on those days, one of my clients come in and they're like, I was able to do that. And it was something that they were never able to achieve before. And they're like, you helped me with that. And they say, no, they're like, it's all thanks to you. And I was like, no, it's not all thanks to me. Like, you did the work. You got to remember that. Don't let anybody else take your credit. You did that. You put yourself through these grueling workouts. I wasn't there with you. I was just showing you how. Like, okay, like this is what we're gonna do. But you physically did it. I didn't make you. And it's like, so don't take that credit away from yourself. So even then it's like, oh, like, yeah, I did do that. And so, the confidence builds, and that's what always keeps me going on the days where I don't want to go anymore. I don't want to do this. So it's like, things always kind of come in those waves. And that's why I try to be, helpful in whatever way that I can be. But I don't know if that led to any questions that you may have had, or if that may have answered a little bit.
It certainly answered it. I have some follow-up ones, but I'm gonna let Brooke answer or ask hers because I know I saw it in her eyes. Brooke's got a whole bunch. But I just want to say thank you for opening up and deepest condolences.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I also just want to say, first and foremost, we're so sorry for your loss. And we really appreciate that you honored us to be able to share all of that. I want to just tell you, like, everything you're saying right now, like, you are such like a coach in the true, like, magical sense of the word to like from the most recent thing you just said about like wanting to make sure that you're not taking the accolades away from someone else, that you want to make sure that they know, like, no, I was here, I was helping, but you did that for yourself. From the fact that you can like look at a sport and see beyond just like the simple game of it, but to see like the life lessons that it can teach you and the way that it can instill grit and critical thinking and emotional regulation. It just, oh my God, it's so awesome. And there's something so special when you get to listen to people talk about the things that they feel passionate about. And so watching you talk about how your family influenced you, how your community has, like the way you have this gratitude for what you get to do and the way that, you got there. And then you then want to then help the youth instill that same, sense of pride and sense of gratitude. Like it's just, oh, it's really cool. It's really awesome to listen to it. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing all that with us.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what led you to know like this isn't just something I'm great at? This isn't just something that like, makes me feel good and I want to do it in my free time. What like led you to know like this is a career for me?
Um, so I still don't think that I'm very great at it. I think that I just try my hardest and try to learn as much as I can and surround myself with other people that I view are great at it. Um, and kind of take and learn. But so it's actually funny, like what kind of started me in things was that when I was 12 years old, and I tell the story, so I'll tell you guys later. But when I was 12 years old, my first nephew was born, and my sister, she was a very young mother, and you hear a lot of kind of not horror stories, but horror stories about parents and family not being supportive of that. But right from the jump, my mom and my dad. My mom, were the pants in the family. So my mom was like, okay, so we're having, the first grandchild's about to be born. Like, we got to be ready for this. We got to be ready for that. We got to do this. So straight from the jump, she was always supportive. And and so they lived with us because, she was 19 by the time, my nephew was born. And man, when I was 19, I was like, you had a kid? Like, what? And then now at 30, I'm 30 now. And then I'm like, Mom, how did you have 5 kids by this age? Like how did you do it like that? It's baffling to me, but I'm like, I respect you. And anyway, so he was always with me. He was always with all of us, my nephew. And we spent a lot of time together. My sister was trying to, figure out where she was going to go from there. She's a mother. Is she going to go back to school? Is she going to try to find a job? Things like that. So I spent a lot of time with my nephew, and before he could even walk, like, what does a 12-year-old know? Like, in reality, like, they're very intelligent, but what do they really know about, like, children? They're a child themselves. So I'm like, okay, it's just me and you, bro. Like, what do we do? So then I was like, here's a basketball, because that's what I knew at that point. And before he could even walk, I taught him how to dribble a basketball. And so we kind of like grew up together, and like that he's, I hope he doesn't listen to this, but that kid's my best friend, like that's my bro. And so kind of just growing up and like, okay, what did I learn at basketball practice today? Okay, this is what I learned, so this is what I'm going to teach you. So then as he got older, well, obviously there's a lot of kids his age, but as he got older, recreation wasn't quite what it was for me. And things kind of had shifted. It shifted into like, okay, well, here's just the gyms, they're open, you can do whatever you want. There was no like organized play. And we didn't really know, like, he's very talented, so it's like, where do we take this, because we want to, um we want to support him in his endeavors. He's talented in this. Does he love it? Okay, he does love it. Okay, where can we support him in this? So then it took a little while, but we found some local leagues and we found some local things. And then I had finally moved back from Kentucky, and that's when I was living in Miccosukee, and I was trying to kind of figure out where I was going in life. There was my niece, someone that I always had them together. It was always us three together. And she was about 2 and she passed away. And so that kind of, I was like, man, my family's over there. I'm in Kentucky. And I'm like, my family's down there, and I don't get to see them, but the kids are growing up, and my parents are getting older, and I'm over here. So it's like I'm missing out on so many things. And so that's when I moved back down, and that's when, like, man, for like a year, it was a long year. It was, I was in essentially what I know now, because therapy, but I was in a very deep depression. And I just remember waking up every single day just angry at the world, and I wouldn't do anything throughout the day. I would just find things to be angry about. And then, like, I hate this. That's so stupid. This is annoying. And I would go to sleep and I would be exhausted. And then finally, like, as an athlete, you're used to moving, you're used to being active, you're used to being out in the sun, you're used to being around people. But I didn't want to do any of those things. And then so I'm like, but why am I tired? I didn't do anything. I wasn't in class all day. I wasn't working out. I wasn't in the gym. I wasn't hanging out with my friends. I wasn't even hanging out with my family. Why am I tired? Why am I tired all the time? So then finally, I was like, you know what? Tomorrow, I want to find at least one good thing. One good thing that makes me happy. One good thing that's, oh, I'm happy for them. Something like that. And then as I keep going, okay, now I'm going to find 2 good things. And then finally, I started seeing more good. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to be around people. And man, I remember the first time I went to go work out, and that was so bad. It was such a bad workout. I was so out of shape. I was tired. I was winded. And I was like, man, when did I let myself get this bad? So, I'm what? I'm about 20 at that point, 19, 20. And I'm like, what I'm 19, 20 years old. How I can't be this out of shape, you know? I'm like, man, I gotta start getting it back together. And my family, they tried not to, push me too hard, because I guess they knew, because I'm the youngest out of everybody, but it's like kind of trying to be there for me, but not push me too hard where I'm like, I'm in a fragile state of mind, or maybe I was just in anger state of mind. So they're like but finally my nephew he's about 7 or 8 at this point, my nephew. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's start moving. My sister luckily had found like some trainings for it, like some trainers around, and she was very proactive. So I was like, okay, like I want to be there for everybody now. Like I can't, again, you can't stew on what you didn't do. You can't stew on what's lost or what's gone. You can, because it takes away from the people who are still here. It takes away from, what you can achieve. So when, we started working out, we started training, and I had been interested in working in recreation, because, at the time people were just like, oh, that's just recreation, like that's it, they're just a babysitting. And it's like, I believe I talked about on the last podcast, it's just things are powerful if you give it that power. So it's what you make of it. So I talk about people gaining their strength, finding their way, and in turn that gave me strength, and it helped me stay on what I believe, like, oh yeah, that is the right path. But if I let it just be like, oh, I'm just a babysitter, then who knows what I would be doing. But so finally he was about 10, and there were no teams. So there was a tournament that I had played in when I was younger. It was called the Jim Thorpe Games. And I don't know if you guys know who Jim Thorpe is, but he's one of the greatest Native American athletes to ever live, besides my father. Just kidding. But so his family created like an organization for him, and they put on games, and I played in it when I was younger. And I remember it's a little bit smaller than what I view as the Indigenous games, and I got to play in that as well, and that was insane. Indigenous games is insane. You meet people from everywhere, like all of North America, and it's like, whoa, like you're from there, and I felt like the Spider-Man meme, like, oh, but you're from there and you're there, and like what? And we're here, we're just little kids, like what are we doing here? We get to play basketball, like you get to do what you love. So I remember that feeling, and like it was so great being around. They're different, obviously they're different tribes than we are, but we're the same, you know. So it's like we have similar goals, we have similar histories, we have similar, obstacles that we face. So it's like, the camaraderie. And so I remember those feelings, and I was like, man, my nephew doesn't get to experience that. So I found that they did it on a smaller scale, the Jim Thorpe games in California. And at this time, I'm what, like 21. I'm 21 years old. And I'm like, I tell my sister, I'm gonna start a team. I'm gonna start a team for him. And in high school, my travel team, my Native American travel team, we were called, oh, it's funny, I'm wearing the shirt. We were called Unconquered. My brother-in-law, he created the team for me and his sister. And because we were around the same age and nobody was really traveling with us at that point. So we got to go to like NAO, we got to go to NABI, we got to go to tournaments in Oklahoma, some went to Denver. So, we wouldn't have been able to experience that if it wasn't created. So I asked him, I was like, what, I'm going to start a team for you. What team name do you want? And then he was like, I really like your team name, the team name that you had. And then I was like, Unconquered? Like that's what you want? Because sometimes even, obviously he was raised with women, but some people are like, oh, that was what girls had, so I don't want that. So but he's a good kid. So he was like, yeah, of course, like that's such a, it's like, yeah, it is a badass name. It's not just it's who we are. So I was like, okay, like let's do it. So then I created the team. He had a few friends that he played with from then on, but he was like me, the youngest. So he was 10, they were 11, and they had a 12 and under category. So I was like, great, it's fine. I had to play up. I had to play against monsters growing up, and it made me better. It made me stronger. So that's what we're going to do to you. You'll be all right. And then we get there. It's called I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but it's Pala, Pala, California. It's a reservation. And we get there and they're like, oh, we didn't get enough participants for the 12 and under. So we put you in the 14 and under. And I was like, I have a team full of 10 and 11-year-olds. And I think we had like one 12-year-old. And then they're like, well, and I was like, I was upset because I was like, you should have informed me. You didn't have enough teams. Gave me the option, okay, you can play in the 14 and under, giving me the opportunity to pick up a few 14, 13-year-olds. Like, that would have been a pretty nice courtesy to have. But they're like, but we went literally across the country. And I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to punk out. And I was like, nah, team, we in there. And then, man, I feel like, my nephew was 10 playing against 14-year-olds. That's a really big age difference, height difference, athletic difference. We had the 12-year-olds and they were so upset. They were so upset. And that was kind of like the introduction to that. Like, I lived through that and I didn't realize how much it made me, that much stronger. But because I remember, man, I was getting my butt whooped being 10, 11-year-olds. The same thing, playing against 14-year-olds, sometimes playing against 15, 16-year-olds. Like, it's just kind of what it is. Like, that's small town blues right there. Like, it happens. We're not one in that it didn't, we weren't just the only ones that happened to. So, I was there, so upset, and I was like, it happens. You got to keep moving forward. You're not, and that's where I would always tell him from then on, because he didn't hit his growth spurt until later on in life, just like I did. And I was telling my nephew, because he was obviously the youngest, he was the smallest at the time, and I was like, bro, like, wouldn't it be nice if you were the tallest on the court, the fastest, the strongest, the best shooter, the best ball handler? Like, wouldn't that be the best? Like, if every single time you were always the best? But that's not real. It's not realistic. And you can't help your genetics, At the time, obviously we didn't know how tall he was going to be, but it's like, I'm 5'8", I had a guard. I was the tallest on my team. And I wasn't even 5'8" till I was like 16 years old. So I was like 5'3", but I was pretty stocky. So I had a guard like the 6-foot Nebraska Huskers when we played, and I'm like, I gotta play these farm girls. Like, I don't want to hear nothing. Just kidding. But I was like, that would be great if you were always the biggest, fastest, strongest, but that's not real. You're not going to be. There's always going to be someone faster. There's always going to be someone stronger. There's always going to be someone, that's a better shooter, better passer, whatever. So what can you do about that? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, what you can do is that you can be the smartest, because it doesn't, think smarter, not work harder, but it's like, that's what you can help. You can help your basketball IQ. You can help yourself by making smarter passes, smarter plays, smarter shots. I was like, that's things that you can help. You can always, strength train. You can always speed train. You can always work on your plyos, sure, and that'll help you. But you're never gonna jump out of the gym if that's not your genetics to do that. But you can watch basketball. You can watch those highlight tapes. You can watch the NBA. You can watch college. I personally like to watch college more than I like to watch NBA. But like, help yourself. That's how you help yourself. So I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear, but they're this and they're that. Like, okay, but you're you, and you got to make you literally, as cheesy as it is you got to make the best you that there is. I don't want to hear that they're stronger than me. I don't want to hear that. That's not an excuse. But they're not smarter than you. you got to be the smarter player. And if they're smarter than you, then you better go back to reviewing everything that you've been taught. So, he was like, okay, like that wasn't quite the thing I guess he wanted to hear, but he was like, okay. And we started working more, and you know, we've worked a lot together, we've grown together, and I guess like kind of wanting him to be whatever he wants to achieve, that's what kind of put me where I am as a basketball coach. I know that I can't be a girls coach because I'm very rough in my approach. And I think it's very and honestly, like the way that some people kind of raise their boys, like my family, we spoiled my brother because he was like the only boy. So it's like, kind of like a cultural thing too. It's like, oh, you pour their plates. You got to make sure things are ready, this and that. So they kind of grow up a little spoiled. So I feel, and women, they're the ones getting everything prepared. They're getting things ready. They're the ones pouring the plates. So it's like girls got it already tough. It's already hard enough out here. They don't need me getting mad at them of like, why didn't you do that? And they're like, I don't know. So then with boys, they kind of need a little humbling anyway. So I'm like, dog, do better. And they're like, yeah, you're right. Because girls, I feel like when I've watched girls play, they give it their all anyway. They're like, you don't, because it's instilled in us that we have to be perfection, that we have to cook perfectly, we got to be dressed perfectly, we got to wash the dishes, we got to make sure that the food's set up a certain way and everything's got to be perfect. So it's like it's instilled in us for it to be perfect, and guys are like, you're great, you're doing amazing. And it's just like, so then it's like, it's kind of like you're not doing amazing, like you were very lazy on that play, why is that? And they're like, oh, you're right, I just didn't want to do that. And then it's like, okay, well, you need to do that because there's no reason that defender who can barely dribble blew right past you, like you should take that personal. And then they're like, you're right, okay. So then that's where it's like, okay, I'm definitely meant to be more of a boy coach than a girl coach, because the girls, I'm like, you're doing amazing, like you are, keep it up. And they're like, no, I'm doing so bad, like like even the mindset is different too. Like even if you hype them up, they still don't really fully believe it. So then so I'm like more of that coach for the girls, like if I ever do, like especially when I train girls. So like that, it kind of set me up into being a coach. I mean, I was 21, and it's like, dang, there's a huge difference. Like I was like, oh, I played basketball all my life, of course I know what to do. I'm young and naive. And then I got to be a coach, and I was like, I have no idea how to tell you, because I see it, I know what needs to be done, how do you not see it? And then that's the difference between being a player and a coach. Of as a coach, how are you going to let your player know that they need to do this, because they clearly don't see it? So instead of, not obviously, I'm not going to talk to children like they're dumb, but it's like, how do you let them know, because they don't see it, and they don't have that experience to know. I have 10 years on you, I better see that. So it's like, that was a huge difference, because I wasn't used to like community, like, and that helped me communicate a lot better in life. Because my family, we're kind of, we're not the best at communication. It took a while, it took a lot of therapy, it took a lot of patience. And it's like, okay, and especially training, because people who, they had a bad day, their grandparent is sick, their partner is, they lost a job, their dog died, something happened to them. And they very well know, like I usually have a board set up for, okay, this is your workout for the day. That way, I have multiple clients at a time, and sometimes they're at different sets or doing a different workout. And it's like, if I can't remember it, it's like, oh, I don't even remember what you're doing. So it's like, okay, you can see it, but if someone's having a bad day, and because you don't know what kind of day somebody is having, and then you're like, are you dumb, I just told you this is what you have to do, or are you dumb, you can't read, it's like, that's not very professional, one. But it's also, it's not a good way to talk to people. So it's like, this is what you have to do. It's like, okay, where do you have questions? And I think sometimes I can come off like a little sarcastic when I'm like being genuine, like, okay, okay. And then they're like, oh my God, I sound stupid. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to see what like thought process you're having. I was like, because they'll second guess themselves. And I'm like, what do you think this exercise is? And they're like, I don't know, I don't know. And I'm like, no, what do you think it is? And then they're like, I think I might have to do it this way, but that's stupid. That's stupid, right? And I'm like, no, you have it. Like you got it. You know what to do. Like trust yourself. And they're like, oh, okay, like yeah, I did know that. And I was like, don't even worry. I was like, tell me always, tell me what you think it is, and I'll either tell you like, yeah, you're right, or you had the right idea, but this is a variation. So you are essentially right, but this is different. So um kind of communicating that better, instead of like trying, like realizing that tone and all of that matter, inflection matters, because they're already second guessing themselves. And especially working with children, they're like I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just out here with the ball. So then it kind of, everything got, I don't know, I was kind of just like not thrusted in it. Like I thrusted myself in it. I forced myself in it, I guess. And luckily I just found a love for it, and knowing just it's crazy. It's just knowing where these things can take you. Something that seems so small, like basketball, weightlifting, like they can take you so far, and it can teach you, and you meet so many different types of people. And I first became a personal trainer, I was about 22 years old, and I kind of got into that, but you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. And uh because basketball, there's a lot of injuries that can happen. It can be a very tough sport. It's very hard on your body. And luckily, when I was about, 16, 17, when my brother-in-law created that basketball team, he was like, okay, before we do basketball practice, we're going to be in the weight room. And we're like, what do you mean? Like, what are we gonna do in there? Like, why are we going in there? Like, I never stepped foot in a weight room before that. And that was kind of around the same time where my high school basketball coach changed my junior season. So he had the same mentality. He played college ball, and he was like, no, you have to hit the weight room. Um, like it's very important. That's how you don't get injured, or that's how you bounce back faster from injury, or the injury is not so severe. So, and this was, man, okay, so 16, this was about 2009ish, right? So that's not that long ago. And that was still a pretty new concept, especially on the reservation. Very, very different. So other communities may have known, like, out off the res, like, okay, yeah, we got a weight train. And but mostly people only did that when they reached college. So it got introduced pretty, like a little bit earlier to me, but it was still, we're all like looking at each other like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. And my brother-in-law was like, no, like this is our workout, same thing that you do now, but, and say, okay, then we're doing this, and this is why we do it, and we're working on this because of this. And it's like, whoa, okay. So then, obviously we were sore, we were tired, and we were complaining like, my legs hurt. You want me to run in a 10-second sprint when you just made me do all these squats? Like, that's not gonna happen. And then, but you grow stronger from it, like literally you grow stronger. It's like, okay, you're not as sore, or you're able to lift heavier, or you're not as tired from doing a full practice because you're in better shape. But we didn't know that at the time. So then that's where it was like my first introduction to fitness into it. And it's like, man, why didn't this happen sooner? Because like my other coaches, some of them went to college, like played college. So it's like, wow, maybe they're like, oh, they're just kids. Oh, but also, sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. A lot of it, even until recent times, was that you don't give a child a weight. Like even when you're like 10 years old, you don't have them work out. Like that was outlandish for that to happen, because it was a lot of like research, they're like, oh no, it can hinder their bones and how they grow, and it's like, if they get hurt, and it's like, yeah, but they could get hurt in any kind of way. They can get hurt, riding their bike. They could get hurt walking on the side. They could get hurt on the playground. Like, if they're, so it's like kind of the progress from there. So I could see why we didn't, because that was a lot of the thinking back then. So that makes sense. But then you see, like, now it, and even now, you don't even have to give a 9, 10-year-old, or even younger, like a 6-year-old, you don't have to give them weight. You just give them their own body weight, and have them master that and grow from there. Because you're not gonna, even now, you wouldn't give a 40-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 60-year-old, you wouldn't give them, you know 10 pounds, let alone like 100 pounds, if they couldn't properly squat, if they couldn't lunge, with being stable. So it's like, yeah, that's the same concept, but then they learn, lifting is actually good for your bones and all of that. So the progress has come. But so when I was about 22, my brother-in-law, he had told me, him and my sister had told me about like a Native American group, and they're called Native American Fitness Council, and that they do different types of trainings and certifications, and that's where he went to get trained to be that's where he got certified to be a personal trainer. And that was when I was about 17. I was like, oh yeah, 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 like, cool for you, like, good job. And but not really knowing what that means. And then so when I was about 22, well, I had been working for 21, and I was the basketball coach. And then I wanted to start, again, I was like, this helped me when I was younger. And I wish I was even, I was your age, talking about my nephew who was about 10, 11 at the time. I wish I was lifting, because it helped me. Let me start having you lift. And but I was told that I wasn't allowed to train in the weight room. I wasn't allowed to do that, because I'm not it was told to me that I wasn't allowed to do that because I was not assigned, like in HR, my job title was not personal trainer. That's why I couldn't do it. And I was like, but my job title isn't basketball coach. So I'm like, but you're letting me do that. How does that make any sense? Um, like it still doesn't really make much sense to me, but I was just like, okay, sis. And I didn't, you know, trust is a very big thing for me, and being a personal trainer, I take very seriously, because you can really hurt somebody, if they don't, whether it's like a tweak in their back, a tweak in their shoulder, or, knock on wood, way worse than that. Because I talked to another basketball coach, and he plays, and he said that he was doing a clean, right? And no, he was doing a squat. I'm sorry. He was doing a squat, and he broke his back, like, broke it. And I was like, broke, like, like, broke. And then he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. So, and he was in college when he did that. He's about my age. So that wasn't that long ago, where it's like, hey, like, we shouldn't be lifting this heavier, you shouldn't do that. How are we feeling today? Do we want to go heavy? No, you're tired. All right, let's go a little bit lighter. That's where ego lifting kind of comes into. They're like, oh, I'm tired. I only got 2 hours of sleep, but I took some pre-workout, but I'm ready to go. And it's like, nah, bro, we ain't doing that. No. But some people still do. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get it. And I'm like, no. So I was like, all right. So then I looked for ways of, okay, I need to become a personal trainer now. I was like, great. I started off from not knowing how to do anything, and now I became a basketball coach, and now I got to and then I became a lifeguard. So then I was like, now I got to learn how to be a personal trainer. Like, okay, sure. Just add it to the list of things that I got to learn. And I was like, just trying to teach like 11-year-olds, but okay. So I went, and it was eye opening. It was, I think, because that was the first time I had been in a room with, like, obviously different than basketball players. Like, I talk about Nao, and I talk about Nabby and Indigenous games, but it's like, those are players, right? We're all playing. We just got to dribble a ball. We got to shoot a ball. But in that room, it was other people wanting and willing to learn how to help other people. Like that's really why we were in that room. And it's like, whoa, like you're doing this too, like awesome. And I've never met you before. And you live a 5 hour plane ride from me. We never would have met if it wasn't for here. But that's still your goal. You want to help your people become healthy and strong. Like that's awesome. And then it's like the instructors are there, and I'm like, dang, you've done this for like 20 years, and then you know what you're saying, you know what you're doing, and you want to help people help other people. Like that's crazy. Like that was kind of, I mean, obviously I was in college and they did that. They were professors and they were teaching, but to see people like you trying to teach other people just like you, because Georgetown, Kentucky, I was maybe one, at least on campus. I don't know about the whole town, but it was a very small town. Um, I was the only brown person and the other like five colored people. There was like five black kids. So that I didn't really see a lot of myself in that classroom. So it's like, yeah, I'm here learning and you're teaching me, but when I went to this training, everyone was like me. So it was kind of like, very like, whoa, okay, like we here. So then, you're nervous when you're at school, but when you're in such a different place, it's like, oh, okay. But then there is something familiar, that kinship. So then I went there and I learned a lot, and it helped a lot with like kind of being like, I already had an idea, especially being a player, sports specific, like, okay, obviously we run, we jump, things like that. So these are the muscle groups that need to be worked and all that. And then but it was just like the way you could do it as well, just kind of like more professional, I guess. There's more something to it, so that part was pretty crazy. And maybe about last year, I went back for another training, and this one had to do with I always mix up this name. It's like aging and special conditions or something like that. And they're gonna get mad at me for not knowing what it's called. I kind of always add my own twist to names, like, I see the name, but this is a better name. Just kidding. I just forget. But that is to work with like elders, essentially, because I work with like a lot of athletes and like able-bodied people. So I wanted to open up, to learn different mindsets, because not everyone is like that. And I want to be able to, if a senior walks up to me and says, "Can you train me?" I want to know how to make them comfortable, and like the appropriate steps for that, instead of in because the weight room can be intimidating for a lot of people. So I went last year, like early last year, and they remembered me from when I went the last time. And then I was like, hey, like I don't expect anybody to remember me, to be honest, because I know people meet so many people in life, and especially them, they do like a training a month. And so I was like, yeah, hey, how's it going? Like it's so nice to see all of you. And I guess I had made an impression on, there was four instructors, and one at the end of the entire training, they came into the head guy, he came and talked to me. And I met him when I was about 22, and I was wearing the Nike Freeze. And he was like, oh, do you like those shoes? And I was like, yeah, I love them, they're so comfortable. I like to run, I actually like to be barefoot a lot when I like to run on the beach. But I don't like to have shoes. Even now, when I train, I either take off my shoes, or now I have barefoot training shoes. Um, just because like it adds that, the support from like really thick shoes is not very good for you, and it's not good for your stabilization. But get your feet strong, nice and healthy and all that. So at the time, that was all I knew, those Nike Frees. And then he was like, oh, I used to, I helped design those concept that concept came from me. And I was like, no way, like you're very smart. Good job. Like, and I was like, no, these shoes are awesome. Like, they're so comfortable. I don't like having shoes on, especially, natives, we never really had shoes on anyway. Like, that's a brand new concept for us. So then, he was like, yeah. And then he was kind of telling me the history behind it. And I was like, wow, like that's awesome. So then I think that's probably why he remembered me. Cause then when I went, and that was literally like 7 years later, so like 22, yeah, about 7 years later, that's probably why he remembered me. And he was like, when you came into the training, you wore those Nike Frees. I was like, yes, I did. And then so then he did like a lot of work with Nike and all that. So it was crazy, talking to this person who, everyone knows Nike. Like, that's like one of the elite shoes, clothing, just the development. So at the end of that training, he had come up to me. He was like, how would you feel about joining us? And I was like, what do you mean joining you? Like do what? Like, what are you talking about? And then he was like, to become an instructor, to, instead of sitting in those seats, you're standing up here and you're demonstrating and you're talking. And I was like, I'm just a little kid from the res. I'm like, what can I teach anybody? That second guessing of myself. And obviously, clearly, they saw something in me where it's like, no. And so, and that took a while to accept compliments. That's why when she was talking, I was just like, but they're like, no, you have a very good personality to like connect with people. You make people comfortable, like from all ages, because um I never had like, my grandparents died when I was very young or before I was even born. So I never really had grandparents that I got to be around. So like other people, like, that are grandparents age, I always say like, oh, even my sister, she's like, oh yeah, you added another grandma to your to your repertoire over there. I was like, yeah, all these grandparents just adopt me. Like, they're always like, come and visit me or come here, and I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I was like, I guess this is what I never had. So I was always able to kind of talk with older people. And I guess a lot of people aren't very good with that. I'm not sure. To me, I just talk to whoever and whatever about whatever. So they're like, no, you're very good with people. Like you worked with she was at when I went to this medical condition training, she was about 68, and she was trying to get certified so she could work with her friends and her, in her community, with other seniors and other elders. And then I was talking to her, and same thing, I respect, our elders so much. um and she was like, you go first, you go. And I was like, no, it's okay, like, you can go and tell me what you think things are. And then I would talk to her, and I'm like, which way can I better describe it to you? Or sometimes they're hard of hearing, so people tend to yell at them, or they get annoyed, or like, oh, like, yes, this is what I said. And like, I wasn't like that. My father was 82 when he passed. So he lived a very, very long life. So he was already older by the time I was born. And then when I got older, he was obviously getting older. And, what elders face is, achy knees, achy back, and they got migraines, and, you lose your sight, you lose your hearing. So I was always very patient of that. I mean, I don't even consider it patient. That's what I was told. But I'm like, no, like, sometimes we don't hear very well, we have headphones in, or there's a lot of noise going on. So it's like, I was used to it, so I would just talk to my father, and I would have to repeat myself 5 times, sure, but I'm like, that's my dad. So then when in the training, I'd be like, I learned, when you talk to people who don't have very good hearing, the shorter the sentences are, the better off they are hearing and retaining that, instead of like a long-winded sentence of like, okay, so this is what we're going to do today, and this involves this, and that works this. you lose like 20-year-olds with that mindset. Like, you already lost me. I'm like, just tell me what we're doing. Like, that's it. Just tell me. So then I learned that. So I would tell her, like, just, very straightforward, like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the body position, whatever, breaking it down in a more simpler way. So then so at the end of when we were talking, she talked to one of the instructors. No, she was talking to me, and one of the instructors was just walking by. And then she was like, and she almost made me cry because like I said, I never had any grandparents around. She was like, you are, and it was like so random, but grandparents, she's like, you are a very beautiful young lady. And not only that, she was like, you're very patient and you're intelligent. Whatever you're gonna do, you're so good for your people. Your people are lucky to have you. And I was like, oh my God. Like, don't say this to me in the middle of the class. Because I'm like, I never had a grandparent saying that to me. And I had my parents, sure. I had, my sister saying, you're great, you're doing amazing. But like, to hear that from like a place you never heard that, it's like, dang, you got me. So it's like, yeah, I got to keep going. Like, I just told her, thank you. I appreciate that very much. But even like what she probably doesn't even remember, or something that she just said, she was like, no, I mean it. I mean it. Like, your people are so lucky to have you. You're gonna be such a great teacher. And I was like, thank you. And then I guess one of the instructors had walked by when she had said that to me. So I was just like, and I'm guessing that kind of helped push when they asked me to join them. And I was like, sure, whatever you want from me. I feel I was telling my sister's boyfriend during corn our ceremony. So I had just come back from a training that they had asked me to join. And I said, he was like, oh, how did it go? And I was like, it went very well. I enjoy meeting new people, and oh man, I love being around the instructors. Like I said, one worked with Nike, one works with like Olympic athletes. He works with Ironman, you know, participants. He's done a lot of Ironmans. They work with college athletes, and you have two of them who were college athletes as well. They're Native American. They work with their people and things like that. So I always love being around them and the experience that they have. Because I'm about like 8 years into this, and they're about 30-40 years. That's a long coverage and a lot of experiences, and they got to travel all around the world. And so they get to meet a lot of people, and I was like, I like to absorb whatever I can. And I was like, they talk to me and they're like, oh, I assume you know this or that. And I was like, just talk to me like I don't. Like explain things to me, go in detail, because I was like, I have no problem at all being the dumbest person in the room. I was like, I love that. I love being in a room where people are way smarter than me, because that just means I have that much more information to learn, and that'll make me better. And I was like, and I like thrive for, education. And how can I know this? Because I'm sure one way or another I'll be able to use this to help myself or help somebody in my life. So I was like, I really enjoy that. So when I go to these trainings, I don't ever try to be like, oh, I'm this way, I'm that way, or like I've done this and that. And I'm like, no, I'm here to learn. I'm here to help. Like, whatever you need me to do. And I'm there, and I absorb, and I try to help the participants in whatever way that I can. Last August, they had, well, beforehand they had emailed me, and then they're like, oh, are you coming? And I was like, coming where? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, are you coming to Nike? And I was like, what do you mean? And then they're like, you're coming, right? You're coming to Nike? And I was like, what are you talking about? Nike what? And then they were like, well, every year, there's a health board on the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, and they do events at Nike, like on the Nike campus, and they send like their health professionals, they send their, fitness professionals. And anybody from across the country can go, but especially, people over there, because it's very popular over there. It's very prevalent, is what I should say. And I was like, I don't know what you want me to do, but I will show up to Nike like a week early. I was like, if you need me to. I had never been to Oregon before. I have been to Washington. I drove through Oregon. Let me clarify, I drove through it, but I didn't stop. So I like to say I had never been to Oregon before. So I was like, I've never been to Oregon before. I know it's beautiful. So I was like, I'm down to go. I will be there. And I was so nervous on the plane ride going over there, because I'm like, what do they want me to do? What can I possibly do? Like, we're going to Nike. Like, that's Nike. And then I get there, and they talk to me. They're like, okay, so we're just essentially, we're just going to put, like, to break it down in like the most basic form, was that we're giving people like a workout, right? We're going to work them out, and that way, and we're going to explain to them like why we do this, and then they can take it home and they can do similar things. Like that's how they're going to, do sports specific training, or agilities and things like that, work on balance training and things like that. But it was such a short time that you had to learn how to explain it in like less than 5 minutes, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. And then it's like, okay, not even a 15-minute activity, and then it's like, okay, and this is why we're doing it. I was like, okay. So then I was there, and I got to walk around the campus a little bit, and I was like, man, this is where fitness can take you. I'm walking around the Nike campus, like, for majority of us, that's like the Mecca. And it's like, wow, like I grew up wearing Nike, and now I'm here where so many like professional and Olympic athletes have trained. They walk the same pathways, and they're on the same field, and they're in the same gym. And actually at the time we were there, Coach K was there at the gym. And I was like, oh my God, I just want to run. I'm like, just gonna peek in there real quick. But it's like, yeah, and that's what I try to tell people, like, that's where fitness can take you as well. Like, I never thought I would ever go. Like, I had no reason to go. Like, I'm not an athlete myself, or I play from time to time, but I'm out of that, where I'm not a college athlete. I'm not gonna be invited over there. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not gonna be invited over there. So it was like, wow, like that part, that's where it can take you. And as long as you're open-minded, and you have, I think, well, for me personally, it took a lot of courage to say okay, and I'll go. I'll be part of your organization. I'll go to these places with you. And later on this year, we're supposed to go to Alaska. And I've been to Alaska before, but it's going to be I was only there for like a day or two. And I was like, whoa, like, yeah, okay, I'll go. So, just trying to, essentially, that's it. That's where fitness can take you sometimes. And that's only me on this level. It can take you even further, and like go for that. Don't be afraid of that. And for a very, very long time, I was afraid of failure. I was very, very afraid to fail, to the point where I just wouldn't do it. I'm like, I would bitch out. I would punk out, because I'm like, oh no, I would look so stupid. Like, man. And then somewhere along the lines, the mindset was like, well, it's worth a shot. And if I, fail, then like I just got to figure out another way to do it. Then maybe I can succeed. I don't know. Or maybe I'll get it right the first time. Who knows? But you won't know until you try. So then that was like the biggest thing. And well, I kind of hold myself back a lot, so trying to teach myself not to do that. And which is funny, because like I'm always telling people like, go, you got it, you can do it, just keep going, don't worry about it. But I don't take that advice to myself sometimes. And it's like, wow, hypocrite. But it's just like, I got to remind myself, because sometimes, the people, there's that saying, it's like, check on the people who support you and who are always there for you, because sometimes they need people there for them. And so luckily I do have that people. I mean, I know we all get caught up in life, but it's also like, well, be there for yourself too. So, a, a, it took, when I first started going to therapy, I was talking to my therapist, and I guess I was ready to talk because first session I'm going and I'm like saying this and that and this. She was like, oh, so you were ready? I was like, yes, ma'am, I was ready. I was more than ready. This is what's bothering me. This is why. I was like, I can't shake this feeling and that. And then finally, I think by our second session, she goes, okay, I had started a little bit after my father had passed, and I was just doing very, very bad. So, but I always kind of knew, like, I was very mental health, and I might have, you might know this and may have been spoken about before, but mental health was never really spoken about in our communities, in Native American communities, let alone like ours. It's like there's different reasons as to why why some may experience um depression, and it's like, oh, just do this and you'll be fine. And I was like, maybe it worked back then, but I also feel like especially back in the day, like my mom, she's in her 60s now, but back when she was like a teen, things like that, you're more worried about how you're going to put food on the table, if you're still going to have a house over your head, than to be worried about, or like than to be focused on how sad you are. You know what I mean? So I think that's where kind of things change. Like, now um we're very, very fortunate to be in the situation that we are, and that's because of all the grinding that my mom and people her age, like our elders, have done. All the hustle and grind that they did is why we're able to sit here and be able to acknowledge our feelings and acknowledge our thoughts. And so when I remember, I was in therapy for about a month or two before I even told my family, because it was very like, I don't tell them things until like I have it situated, because I don't like to freak people out. And then so I was like, okay, let me sort through things. But they knew I was sad. They knew that I was very in touch with my feelings, with myself. I just didn't know how to word things. So when I would know that I was in a depressive state, I would say, I'm feeling low. I'm really low right now. And then they're like, oh no, like, what do you need? Like, do you need some time away? Like, do you want us to kind of be pulled back a little bit? Do you want us to be surrounded more? And I was very much, I want to be alone. And then finally, um when my boyfriend and I got together, I was trying to say that without making it sound weird. I was like, when my boyfriend and I got together, when we started dating and all that, he was very, very in tune with his feelings. He's a very, very patient person. He communicates very, very well. And that was that was really outlandish for me. Like, I was like, whoa, like, you're adjusted. You're well adjusted. Like, good for you. Right? And then like I said, at the time, I wasn't very good at communication. I had anger issues, things like that. So he was very patient. He's like, okay, like, let's take the time and realize, like, what's going on here, like, tell me, why are you irritated, what's angering you. So um finally, when I talked in, it took a while, but I went into therapy, and then I started talking, and then a month or two later I told my mom. I was like, okay, mom, don't freak out, but I'm in therapy. And she's like, what? Where? Why? Like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Like, because my mom is more of like, she worries about you. So the way that our worry and our scaredness comes off, it comes off as like anger instead. And then so I was like, mom, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm physically okay. I'm in a good state of mind. I was like, and that's in part to the therapy, and kind of compartmentalizing a lot of things, and a clarification of my mindset. So she was like, "Oh, okay." So then I told my sisters, and I told my nieces and nephews, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm in therapy." And they're like, "What? Like, you are? Are you okay?" Because a year before my father passed, we had lost my brother, and I think due like in part of like kind of why he went to drugs had to do with like depression about like our childhood, our lives. And he got very injured. And that kind of is what pushed me to be a personal trainer, was to like come back from injuries like that, because he had a very like he had a very tough life, very very tough life. And essentially I think that's why he turned to the things that he did. And so kind of not wanting to repeat that, trying to, what they say, break the cycle and things like that. So I was like, I gotta situate things. I gotta get it together. I can't let it consume me, because if I wasn't gonna save me for me, I gotta save me for my family. I gotta be here. So gradually I learned to live for myself. But losing people, like they were the only men in our lives, my only brother, my only dad. So it's like that was a hard hit. It was a hard take. And my nieces and nephews, they're like, they're gone. Like, what do you mean? Like, what happened? Why? So then it's like, and those were like the two closest people the two people I was closest to growing up, especially because it was always us three growing up. And so it's like, I don't know, but you face those kind of those demons in your head. So I was like, no, I got to sort this out, and I got to believe in myself. And that's what that turned to, is like, that's what helped. Family helps. And okay, I can't live for myself yet. I'm gonna live for y'all, and then I'm gonna find myself along the way. So then when I was going, I had told the therapist, I was like, I had just become I finally achieved, I was the pandemic kind of pushed back a lot of things, where the tribe was shut down for 2 years. And then it was like right when I got promoted to being a personal trainer, a fitness specialist. And I was like, yes, I started going, and I had all my clients were going, and then shut down. And we're like, okay. So then when we got back, I started, training again, and then I became like a water commissioner for the tribe. And then I started doing more things with our family business and all of that. And then I was telling my therapist, I was like, I still feel empty. I was like, I don't know like what else I can do. I was like, my dad was such a great man. He was like, he had so much courage. Like he was he was the first Seminole to graduate from a public school. So when everyone was getting sent off, to boarding schools, he stayed and he graduated here in Florida. And he was the first Seminole to receive an athletic scholarship for college. And he was, our youngest president for the tribe. He was 31. So I'm like, and he got to, go to, and I just found that out after his passing. He, on behalf of the United Nations, he went to London. And I was like, he has a doctorate, and he got to be a colonel. He has like all these things. And I was like, I can't ever do that. Like, how did he do that? Because he lost his parents. Like, he lost his father when he was like a baby. And then he lost his mom when he had like just graduated from high school. And I'm like, here I am, like 25 years old. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing? I need him here to tell me what I got to do. Like, you're doing great. And it's like, my therapist is like, no, you don't need him here. He's told you that. And she's like, you told me before. What did your father always tell you? And, or like, how did he always make you feel? And it's like, growing up, just like being us, like who we are as people, being true to ourselves, like all my siblings, he would always tell us that he was proud of us. He would be like, you did that. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Good job. You did amazing at that. And it's like, yeah, he never once made us feel like he was never proud of us, that he never loved us. And then she was like, that. So what are you trying to achieve? Like, no, he's not here to tell you that he's proud of you, but that he is. And it's like she's like, what else can you do? What else can you do that would make you feel like he would be proud of you? What else can you do? And I was like, nothing. There was nothing, because I know that waking up and just being me, he was proud of me. Excluding all the things that I have excusing all the things that I have accomplished, not disregarding like what I would like to accomplish. So it's like, that was kind of like the clarity, I had in my head. It's where like, okay, living my truth, and living and doing things that I want, doing things that I enjoy, doing things that I love, even sometimes doing things that I hate. So it's like things that I don't want to do, he'd be like, oh, I know you didn't want to do it, but you did it. And, I'm proud of you, something like that. So that's the kind of the strength that gives me too, to not be afraid, I feel, because I was like, maybe he did have fear. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but he still went, 100 miles per hour. And he wouldn't want me to live the life that he lived. He wants me to live my life the way that I want to. And what I want to do is, help my family as much as I can, and help my community and help my tribe as best as I can. So I think that's where it's like that drive still continues, of like, even on the days where I don't want to, where I'm like, I think I'm gonna sleep in today.
So much of what you touched on, though, not necessarily obviously like your specific story, that's your story, but the things that you struggle through. And there's this kind of repetition that's been coming up of you really have a grasp of when you are down, when you're low, when you're in a dark place, of how to like do things to bring yourself back out of that, both like physical activities as well as just kind of like the mental fortitude of like kind of getting yourself in a place of like, I'm done with this, we're gonna we're gonna go. And I know so many of our listeners, regardless of what their personal crux is right now, what they're dealing with, which might not be the same situation, but those lessons are, they're eternal. And whew, you've presented them in such a way where like it's wild that you're like around my age, and like you're speaking with this wisdom of somebody like triple both our ages. It's really incredible. And I don't remember what the question was. Who cares? Who cares about the question? Because the answer, like you gave a lot more than even just what was asked. And I really, really appreciate you sharing all that with us. That was really special. I'm sure Awista has something she wants to add too. As we're both just sitting here like crying, laughing, like that's what I'm saying. Like we were on this journey together. That was
Yeah, man. Like I have goosebumps. My tears. Like we're just casually, like I'm just trying to make it casual, like, get the stream off without like taking the attention away. But my goodness, like thank you first off for sharing, as Brooke said. And second, you did mention something earlier that I just kind of wanted to hone in before we wrap up today's podcast. You were talking about how it's sometimes hard for those to go to the gym, and that like when you're in a little depression pit, it gets harder and your motivation just kind of strips away from you. So I just wanted to say thank you for pointing out that it is hard. However, it will get easier. You just got to keep going. And there is a community around you. Like you said, you never knew that somebody just lifting weights, that person is just lifting weights. But no, they're probably working through something. They're probably going through it. Or maybe it's, personal growth, whatever it may be. You're not alone in that gym. So I just want to say thank you very much for pointing that out. And I hope all of Indian country is able to resonate and feel inspired to go out to their community gym or any gym and just, do it for you. Do it for the person deep down inside. Make that person a little bit happier and remind yourself it's okay to have hard days. You just got to keep showing up and get through it. So thank you for your positivity. It cheered me up. It gave me a good little pep talk that I feel like I needed. I feel ready to get back into the gym and work through what I'm going through. So I hope that resonates with everyone who's listened to this podcast today, and just thank you for sharing so much. I cannot stress that
Yeah.
enough. Like,
No
you did
problem.
not have to be as personal as you were, and you did. And I just can't thank you enough for doing that and sharing that, because I'm sure there are many listeners out there that are going through the same thing, or if not, have gone through it, and they've got you. They got us. They got all of
Yeah,
us. We're all
right.
here. You're not alone.
Like, we
So
out here.
Courtney out here. Hit her. She'll go to the gym with you. She's in shape. I'm not. So Courtney will help you out, man. She'll be there with you. So
That's
thank you so
funny.
much.
No problem. That's funny. People always ask me about, like, what do you do? What do you do in the gym? And my clients, I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not gonna give you anything that I personally wouldn't or am not able to do. Sure, I have a knee injury, but you're able to modify. But I'm like, if I can't do something, I'm not gonna make y'all do it. That, and like they ask me a lot of like nutrition questions, and they're like, oh, I'm not gonna claim to be a nutritionist. I am not, but I have a very healthy relationship with food, and a lot of people don't. And that's what a lot of people, especially trainers and health professionals, need to understand. Like, they don't have a good relationship with the gym, and they don't have a good relationship with food. And I'm like, they're like, oh, like, I went to Benihana's last night. Like, you must be so mad at me. Or I had Texas Day Brazil the other night, and I was like, oh, like, why did you go there? Like, oh, I was celebrating a birthday, or I celebrated graduation. And I was like, how can you demonize that though? You know, you went there for, someone that you cared for. How could that be a bad thing? And even if you didn't go because of that, you went because you wanted that Benihana rice. Okay, eat that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of positivity, is that everything, obviously in portions is great, but to demonize food that way is very poisonous to the mindset of, like, you can't, like, oh, I can't believe I ate that, I'm so fat. Like, no, it's okay. If maybe I was like, maybe don't eat 3 orders of rice 3 times a week. I'm like, yeah, maybe let's take a step back there. But it's like no, food, I don't speak so kind of like this, but it's like, we're all gonna die. We all die. There's no escaping that. So why not enjoy your life? Why not enjoy your time? Why not enjoy, like, that Benihana rice, that garlic picanha? Because I like those things. Why am I not? Why am I gonna eat it but tell you not to eat it? That don't make no sense. But it's like, I eat a portion. I'll only eat one rice. I'll drink water with the meal, or I'll have like a hot tea later. Like, but you don't starve yourself in order to eat that, or like, I got to go hit the gym for 3 hours now and do this because I had that. Like, no, you don't. You just, okay, that happened, and you keep it moving. That's a way more healthy relationship than, I'm gonna be strict Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, I binge all day, the whole day, And I'm like, being moderately healthy, your portions and all that, but you have one meal. It's like, okay, like, no, on the grand scale of things, like, no, that's okay to do that. And I know we're reaching our end, so that's where I'm like, that's something that I really wanted to include, was food, and like, don't be worried about, oh, I don't have a six pack, or, oh, you can't see my quads, or, oh, my glutes need to be bigger. It's like that aspect of that I like to train as, what are your goals? Are they realistic goals? As an athlete, do want to be able to play the whole game with, obviously you will get tired if you're playing hard. So, you got your timeouts, you got your subs and all that. But are you able to physically play a whole game, whether it's volleyball, baseball, soccer, basketball? Are you able to play that and excel? While you're playing, are you able to jump higher than you thought? Are you able to take those hits? Are you able to, speed off faster? Those are really good goals. And for the people who aren't athletic, people think I only train like athletes because I like to train an athletic style, like where we incorporate like a lot of plyos and things like that. But it's like we do that because I don't like to just move forward. In life we don't just move forward. We move laterally, we move all sorts and types of ways. Our bodies move in all types of ways. You slip and you fall, you hit things, and it's like you carry things, so it's like you got to be prepared for that. And that's where I like to incorporate things like that. That's going to help you also with everyday life without you even thinking about it. It's like, oh, I carried all the groceries in one trip. It's like, yeah, but beforehand I had to do 5 trips, and even just cutting it down, they're like, whoa. Or man, one got me where she was like, I was able to pick up my son. And that got me. I was like, oh my God. I was like, let's go. Because you're going to be able to pick him up and squat him like 20 times. So, but, as a joke to play it up, but it's like, wow, like something what some deem as that. Or it's like, I was able to, walk somewhere without getting winded. That's important too. It's not just about your aesthetic or, and be realistic. It's okay. Like, we're not all meant to have 6-packs. I always say, I have a protective layer on them. Got to keep them protected. So it's like, that's okay. What is that your goal? Because if that's your goal is to have that, then you got to be really serious, sure. But and then when I tell them kind of like it takes these things, and they're like, oh, never mind. I'm okay. I want to keep working out because I actually want to lift, heavier. And it's like, okay, and we'll get there. That's no problem at all. So one of the biggest things that affected me too was I had a new client come in earlier this year, and they were like, they wouldn't look me in the face, really. They were like this, they were like, here, there. And then even when you work out, you have to keep good form. Your view has to be different, because if you look down on things, you're leaning forward and it throws you off of balance. And I was telling them, I'm like, look forward, look forward, look forward. I was like, what's on the ground? Nothing. I was like, exactly. Ain't nothing on the ground for you, so don't look down there. So then they're like, okay. And then in our gym, there's a lot of mirrors. So it's kind of like you have to look at yourself. You have to stare at yourself. So it's like that's a big deal for people, of like staring in their reflection, especially if they have low confidence issues. So it's like, oh, I don't want to look in the mirror. I don't want to see myself dying. I don't want to see myself out of breath. And it's like, well, then, you did this exercise and you got winded. So then in a couple of weeks, you see it like, oh, I'm not winded anymore. Like, okay, that's progress. So then I remember maybe a couple weeks go by, and then I had to go out of town, but I still sent them workouts. And then I was like, so how's everything been? How are you feeling? Like, how are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm doing great. I can finally look myself in the mirror. I was like, good for you, man. I was like, good for you. I'm happy. I was like, but I meant like on the progress of you lifting, but I'm so happy for you. Oh yeah, things are going great. But you see something as, those are wins. Those are huge, huge wins. And that's where there's 2 sayings that I really like, that I kind of like live by. The first one is, be the person you needed when you were younger. And that's why I always try to be present, for whoever. And then the second one is that I don't need to change the world, as long, I just want to help change one person's life. And that's, that means the world to me. So those are really 2 big things that I kind of go by. And that's what helps me go forward as well. I don't know if that's a good place to end off or what.
I think that was very appropriate. I know, I'm like, oh my God.
No, but thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you for your thoughts, your wisdom, the way you were truly vulnerable with your heart and your story with us. It really like this is gonna inspire and help a lot of people. Is regardless of anyone listening, regardless of like what issues you're trying to navigate in your life, this idea of like a day at a time, doing the things that you know are good for you, even when you don't want to do anything, finding that one thing in the day that makes you happy, and then tomorrow finding two. Oh, sometimes like it really, in a world that's so complicated, sometimes it really is that simple with things like that. And
Yeah.
just thank you so much for sharing that with us, Courtney. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Huge thank you to Courtney. If you enjoy our show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Please also visit our website, nativelearningcenter.com. You can find more information on upcoming webinars, trainings. You could contact our website with any episode ideas that y'all would want us to explore. And until then, be sure to come back for more content. This has been Brooke, Anawista, and Courtney, and we hope to connect with you guys again really soon.